Now let's talk about some very important people who actually set foot on the moon. Now there were three Americans named Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin and Michael Collins who were the first people to land on moon. These were the three men who landed on moon, with Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin and Michael Collins. And they traveled and landed on moon on a spacecraft called as Apollo 11, and this is Apollo 11. Now, among these three gentlemen, it was Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin who first stepped foot out into the moon on the 21st July 1969. Now let's talk a little about eclipse. What exactly is eclipse? Now, if you shine a torch on the wall and you place your finger in between, you'll get a shadow which looks like this, right? You can play around with it and things like that. In the very same fashion, the earth and the moon will cast shadows out into the space when sunlight falls on it. Now, when this happens, this causes two kinds of eclipses. What are the two types of eclipses that we have? We have the solar eclipse and we have the lunar eclipse. Now, let's first see the solar eclipse. Now, when we see the solar eclipse, here the sun, the moon and the earth line up in the straight line with moon in the center. So, we have the sun, the moon and the earth with the moon in the center. And if you see here, the moon is blocking sun's light and it casts a shadow on the earth. So this is the shadow that is cast on the earth because of the moon coming between the sun and the earth. Now, because of this, what happens? Some people within this shadow region cannot see the sun at all. For example, this region that is very, very dark, these people cannot see the sun at all. For them, sun is visible like this because the moon is right in the center, so they can only see a halo around it. So these people who see the sun like this are said to be in total solar eclipse. For them, the sun is completely blocked. Whereas there are some people towards this outer ring of the eclipse, like this gray area here, who can see the sun partially. And these people are said to be in partial solar eclipse. So here the sun is partially blocked. Now once this eclipse ends, the moon moves on its orbit, and you can see here the moon is moving on and you can see more of the sun being exposed here. So the eclipse does not last for more than 7 minutes. It takes just 7 minutes for the eclipse to be done and over. And children, you should never see a solar eclipse directly with your eyes because it can damage your eyes. So you have to wear solar sunglasses in order to see an eclipse. So please keep that in mind or you are going to damage your eyes. Next, we will move on to the lunar eclipse. When we see the lunar eclipse, here as you can see the picture itself, the sun, the earth and the moon line up in the straight line with the earth in the center. And due to this, the earth casts a shadow on the moon. So you can see here the earth is casting a shadow on the moon. So if the shadow of the earth covers the entire moon, it's called as the total lunar eclipse. And if the shadow of the earth covers only a part of the moon, it's called as a partial lunar eclipse. So just like the solar eclipse, we have a total lunar eclipse and a partial lunar eclipse. Now finally, let's talk about something very interesting called as artificial satellite. We said our moon is a natural satellite. Let us see what are artificial satellites. Now human beings have been very intelligent and have successfully placed their own satellites around the earth. And these satellites have been sent up there with the help of rockets. Now these artificial satellites revolve around the earth and they are used for various purposes. And since they have been installed there by man, they are called as artificial satellites. Now the world's first artificial satellite was Sputnik 1, which was launched on the 4th of October 1957 by the Russians. And it orbited the Earth for nearly 6 months. And children, did you know that India's first satellite was Aryabhatta? So this is Aryabhatta right here, and this is Sputnik 1, which was first put into orbit by the Russians. Now let's see the uses of satellite. Why do we have to put satellites up? Now there are one category of satellites called as the communication satellites. These satellites are used for communication, as their name itself suggests. For this, the example is INSAT 4CR, which was launched by India in 2007. And these communication satellites help in relaying television and radio programs. Also, it is used in sending telephone signals for very far off places. Like we have satellite phones. We then have weather satellites. What are weather satellites? As the name itself suggests, these satellites are used to study our atmospheric conditions. And they look on Earth from above and they help in forecasting the weather. Not just that, satellites are used to photograph the Earth from above, and they give us really valuable information about the changes that is happening on the Earth's surface. And finally, they are used to study the different stars and planets that are around the Earth. So with this, we wrap the chapter about our friendly neighbor, the moon. Let's quickly go through what all we learned. So first we looked into the moon and we said it is quarter the size of the Earth and it is at a distance of 384,400 kilometers away from us. Then we saw the different conditions on the moon. We said that the moon's surface is full of pits called as craters. It has mountains. It's covered with a layer of dust. It has no atmosphere, because of which it becomes very hot during the day and extremely cold during the night. Then we spoke about how the moon moves. We said that it revolves around the Earth just like how the Earth revolves around the sun, and it takes about 28 days for one revolution to occur. And we studied about the different phases of the moon. We said the different phases of the moon were new moon, crescent moon, half moon, gibbous moon, and finally full moon, which takes 14 days. And the next 14 days of the phases of the moon is reversed in the reversed order, starting from the full moon and ending in the new moon. Then we spoke about 3 American men who landed on moon through the spacecraft Apollo 11. They were Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, and Michael Collins. Then we spoke about eclipses, where the Earth and the moon cast shadows on each other because of the sun's light. And we saw solar and lunar eclipse, where in solar eclipse we saw that the moon comes between the sun and the Earth, and in the lunar eclipse we saw that the Earth comes between the sun and the moon. And we even spoke about what was total eclipse and what was partial eclipse. Finally, we spoke about artificial satellites and their uses. We saw that the first artificial satellites was launched by the Russians, which was named as Sputnik, and the first Indian artificial satellite was Aryabhatta. So with this, we wrap this chapter up. If you have any doubts, please get back to us. Please like this video and share it with your friends. Thank you.